on YouTube. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so most of you are familiar with this cheat sheet because we've gone over it a number of times. But this is just realistic strategies that you can use when you're dealing with questions on the SAT. A bunch of them are now irrelevant because the order has been switched. A bunch of things that were there are not there anymore. So you need to keep that in mind as well as you go through certain books. Like you need to skip some chapters because some of them are not tested anymore. But the major ones are the big idea questions, the inference questions, function questions, command of evidence, and a little bit of infographics. Those are the major questions that you're going to find on the SAT. Okay, so the options for today are we could pick one of these topics and go through the strategies and then have like a practice session at the end of the questions that, how to actually handle the questions. Or we could just have like a question go through where we pick a paper and all of us just like go through. In that way, we'll be like going through the strategies as well, and also like seeing where you guys are and focusing on like what mistakes we can fix and whatnot. So yeah, so based on that, what do you guys want to do? Do you want us to pick a topic and like really focus on that type of question, or do you want us to just like go through a paper? It's up to you guys. And feel free to unmute as well if you want to say something. Okay, go through a paper. Any objections? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, if no one else says anything, we'll go through a paper. Topic? Okay. Let's have a tiebreaker. Go through a paper or a topic. No one else wants to give their opinion? Okay, so we're going to go with the topic. Or go with the topic? Okay. Okay. So even if we do go through the topic, we will still go through the paper, but the difference is we'll only look at questions in the paper on that specific topic. So we'll be doing both, but we'll go with the topic. Thank you for that. Okay. So we're going to go with big idea questions because these are the most common, that they come the most times, and also they're the most important because you understanding what the big idea is will also help you on a bunch of other parts of the SAT. I know you guys, like I said, already have the books. I'm not going to start explaining like, the theory of what the big idea is. The major thing is I'm going to be telling you how you're going to find it, how you're supposed to think about it, and what major mistakes does the College Board use to try to mislead you. So this is like the practical side of the big idea. So yeah, so the big idea has many names. I'll also be typing in the chat just because I like writing when I'm talking. Okay, so the big idea has many names. It's the big idea, the central claim, the big picture, the main idea. And it's important that you know these different names because that's how you're going to know what the question is when you're going through the paper. So one of the major differences between the old and the new SAT is that now there's no demarcation between the writing and the reading sections. So they won't tell you like this is a writing question, this is a reading question. It's basically a whole combined paper. And it's up to you to tell like, am I doing writing? Am I doing reading? So this is why it's important for you to tell when you look at a question, like what topic is this question under? So if you see anything that's to do with big idea, central claim, main idea, big picture, then they're asking you about the main idea. Yeah, it's most likely they'll ask you about the main idea. So you need to first of all identify the question because that determines how your approach is going to be. And this is how it's supposed to be for the reading section. You can't treat every question the same way because they're asking you for different things. And one of the things that misleads or that makes people get questions wrong is that if you don't understand something the way the College Board wants you to understand it, then you're looking for the wrong thing, basically. Like it's like if you're looking for a needle in a haystack and you don't know the color of the needle, you won't be able to find it. So the major thing is you have to know what you're looking for, and then it's easy to find it from there onwards. So first thing is, are you able to tell, is this a big idea? Is this a main idea question? Because that determines what your approach is going to be. This is a main idea question. And then once you've identified that it's a main idea question, of course, the next thing is, what is the main idea? Because then you want to know what it looks like so that you'll be able to find it. So that's the second question. What is the main idea? So as I said, I know you guys have the book, you have all the textbooks, you have access to lessons online. So I know you already have that, like you probably already read about the main idea. But the way that will help you find it is it's the topic plus the so what. Okay. So it goes beyond just knowing what the topic is. It's an idea, just the way the word implies. So this is very important because there are a lot of things that can be said about something. Let's say you're reading a passage about, let's say you're reading a science passage about phone chargers. I'm looking at my phone charger right now. That's very random. But yes, so you're reading a passage about phone chargers. But then what's being said about the phone chargers in the passage is that, oh, they are very inconvenient and we need to find a battery that's never going to die. So the whole passage is talking about how, oh, phone chargers are bad. They are bad because they are inconvenient, right? So if I ask you what's the main idea, you can't just tell me phone chargers. Like there's so much that can be said about them. Someone else can say they are good. Someone else can say, I like white ones, I like blue ones. So the whole big idea is you're trying to really zero down a passage into one sentence. That's what the main point is. So how you do that is you take the topic, so phone chargers, and then you take what's being said about it and you combine them. So a main idea is not just a word, it's a whole sentence. It's the word and what is being said about it. So in my hypothetical passage, I would say the main point is that phone chargers are bad. That's it. So it's like the phone chargers, you've gotten it, and then what's being said about them is that they are bad. And once you put those two together, then you have the main point. And the one thing that College Board will try to mislead you about is they'll get the topic, phone chargers, and then say something that's not so irrelevant, not so relevant, I mean, in the passage and put it there. Maybe one sentence said phone chargers that are white and mixed, and then put that as the main idea, as an option, right? So it's misleading because it is in the passage. But remember, it's called the main. Like all these words we've seen, the big, the central, the big picture, everything that you're looking at, if you were to combine it into one sentence, that would be your main point. So that's what you have to keep in mind, that when you're looking at the main idea, it has to be the whole passage combined. It's basically a summary sentence of the passage. And it would be hard if to get a summary sentence from a whole passage, of course. But if you think of it in terms of the topic plus a so what, that really guides your mind. So I want you to think of that as you are like reading through a passage. First of all, find your topic. Your topic is the thing that's being talked about. So like phone chargers. So obviously it's going to appear most frequently in the passage because they're talking about it. So they'll keep mentioning it and mentioning it and mentioning it in like different sentences. So identify your topic, what's being talked about, and then what is being said about it. So basically, if I was to summarize everything, all the sentences that have been said, what would I give as my summary sentence? And that will help you to not pick like a tiny idea and then magnify it and say this is my main point, even if it's not the main point. Because the main point has to be talked about throughout the passage. Yeah. And again, if you have a question as I'm talking or you want to add something, feel free to interrupt me. I love it when you guys are taking part in the lesson. Yeah, so that's the main point. You are taking the whole passage and basically summarizing it into one sentence. And then, yeah, it's going to be the main meaning. It's implied all over the passage. Idea means it's a cohesive sentence. It's not just like one word, but you're getting everything and putting it as one, and that's going to be your main idea. So you guys are very fortunate because when I was taking the SAT, we had like 95 lines of a passage. And out of all of that, you have to get a main idea. But for you guys, you have like a paragraph and that's your passage. So you don't even have a lot of information to filter through. It's easier to find the main idea, which is why it's also easier to be misled because you have little information. So just keep in mind that your main idea has to be implied throughout the passage, first of all. And secondly, it has to be a cohesive idea. It's not just a word. So even if you see an option that does talk about phone chargers, for example, you have to analyze further and say, okay, even though it's talking about phone chargers, does it actually capture what the whole passage is talking about. And that's going to help you find the main idea. Okay. Then another thing that can help you is, as you are like trying to find the main idea, is that think of how you would write a passage, right? If I ask you, Jaden, tell me, write a passage about who you are. You're not just going to start with something random like, what can I say? I love biology. Like you're going to first say, oh, my name is Jaden. I am from this place. Oh, I do this and this. And then you're going to like go further into it. So that's how a passage is going to be. It's not just going to start on a random place. The main author has to first say like, what are they talking about? So if ever like you're confused and you're trying to look for the main idea, go to the beginning, because the author will have to say in the beginning what the passage is about, right? And then if you go to the beginning, that will definitely tell you the topic. Like I said, like Jaden will first describe himself, like, oh, this is me. So the first part of the passage tells you the topic. And then when you go towards the end, as the author is like summing up, they'll have to say like, okay, now this is the point of the passage. It's kind of like a debate, right? You have the first speaker whose job is to like, I don't know how many of you, I love debate. Anyway, the first speaker is going to focus on like defining the motion, like, okay, what does this word mean? What are we talking about? Then the last speaker is a summarizer, putting all the points together. So think of it that way. When you're trying to like look for the main idea, look at the first part to tell you the topic. Look at the last part, it's going to tell you the main idea. Now, it's not always this way, because if you have something like a literature passage, like a story, the author is just talking. We're not going to like go back and sum up the points. So this is just something that can help you in case like you're confused or you've read through it, but you still can't find the main idea, especially for a science or a social studies passage. But it doesn't always apply, just so you know, but it can help you in some cases. Yeah. Okay. And then the last point is make sure you know the main idea before going through any question. As I said in the beginning, this is the most important topic in reading, because it's not only going to help you on questions that are asking you about the main idea. You knowing the main idea can help you on so many other questions. Like if you read through a passage and you can't say what the main idea is, it means you didn't understand the passage. So whenever you're reading a passage, my whole approach was to, after I read it, like try to say the main idea to myself. That will help me know that I've understood the passage. So I will say this was more helpful when you had like very long passages. If you have a short passage, I guess it's easier to understand. And also, I'm an advocate for you reading the question first. So if you already know what you're looking for, you don't necessarily want to understand the passage. You're looking for the answer to the question, you know. So it depends on the type of question. But if they do ask you about the main idea, like you know, you're asking yourself the topic plus the so what, even as you read through, and then that will help you to understand the passage as you go through it. So if ever you're reading a passage and it's not making sense, just think of, let me find the main idea, the topic plus the so what, and that will bring the whole passage together in a short way that you'll be able to understand. Yeah, so that's about the main idea. Are there any questions or contributions?
No, miss.
Okay. So just to go over it again, the topic is the word, the what is being talked about. So it's going to appear most frequently in the passage. And then the main idea combines the topic and what is being said about it. So the topic plus a so what gives you the main point. And then most often your main idea will be this. I need to change this because this is mostly for a long passage. But the whole point is that the main idea will be in the beginning and at the end most times, and you can find it easily that way. And you have to know the main idea before going through any question. So it's easy to know this information, but if you don't know, if you don't practice enough, and as you practice, you're not like really analyzing why you're getting certain answers wrong, it's not going to help you in any way. So again, I'm an advocate for, as you go through papers, it's easy to just go through a paper and be like, oh, I scored high on this paper and move on. But if you go through a paper with the approach of, okay, let me see, if you go through a paper with the approach of like, let me see why I got this question wrong and make some corrections in my process, then you're actually improving on what you're doing. So don't do papers to feel good, like, oh, let me do this paper and see if I can get everything correct. You can get everything correct, but what if you got questions correct accidentally, right? We all guess sometimes, and they're like, oh, I did well, but you guessed on like half the questions. So you're not really like testing yourself, you know. You have to really sit down with the paper and see like, why did I get this question wrong? Did I not understand what the main idea is? And then that knowledge you'll be able to apply to any other paper that you take. Because obviously your SAT paper will be different from anything you've ever seen before. So let that be your approach. Like, always ask yourself, like, why did I get this question wrong? How can I not make this mistake the next time I go through this paper? Okay, so this is one of the new SAT papers. I've been sticking to just paper 1 and paper 2, just because I don't want to like finish you guys' practice material. So we've gone through paper 1. I know we went through the main idea question. So this is the second paper, and we'll also go through the questions. And this is a time for you guys to like see how thoroughly you understand it. For those who've been in these sessions before, everyone answers the question, everyone goes through it, and then we go through it together. So we find the answer together. And then in that way, all of us are learning from each other's mistakes, learning from each other's explanations, and that will help you. So if you're passive, you're not going to be helped as much. So just be sure to take part as much as you can, come up with your own answer so that in case your answer is wrong, you can see, oh, what did I do wrong? And how can I not make this mistake the next time? Okay, so this is reading and writing. And like I said, it's not sorted. So the only way to know is to know how the questions look. So you really have to like be keen on that because like I said, each question has a different approach that works best for it. And you can't just treat each question the same way. So in general, writing has to do with grammar. Is this text correct? Punctuation marks, what's the better way to say this? So whenever you see anything to do with logical word, phrase, this is writing. So is that skip downwards, logical word, this is all writing. Most logical, still writing. Skip down, which choice best describes the overall structure of the text? This is reading and this is main idea. So I mentioned that literature passages are different. So in this case, this is like a poem. And so it won't really have like a main idea, but you could still like summarize. Remember I said the main idea is a summary sentence. So when they ask you about the overall structure, they're asking you about the main idea. Like how would you like summarize this into one sentence? So we're going to go through this one and then we'll see if you can find any other main idea questions. So I'm going to read through the question and read through the options. And I want you guys to come up with your own answers and let me know what you think. Okay. So first thing is read the question because that tells you what you're looking for before you even start looking for what you're looking for. So we know we're looking for the overall structure of the text. This title is important. They wouldn't have put it there if it wasn't important. Always read it because you never know how it will help you understand the passage. So in this case, the title tells us this is a poem. That would be very important. This is a poem and it's called Street Lamps in Early Spring. So this is kind of like the title. We're talking about street lamps and it's spring. So that gives you like a picture of what you're looking at. Okay, so Night wears a garment, all velvet soft, all violet blue, and over her face she draws a veil, as shimmering as floating dew. And here and there, in the black of her hair, the subtle hands of night move slowly with their gem-starred light. Okay. Options. It presents alternating descriptions of night in a rural area and in the city. B. Sketches an image of nightfall, then an image of sunrise. C. Makes an extended comparison of night into a human being. D. Portrays how night changes from one season of the year to the next. So what do you guys think? You can type in the chat, you can unmute yourself. Yeah.
I think it's B.
Did you say B?
Yes.
Okay, B, so we have a B. And A. Okay, anyone else with a different answer? Okay, does anyone want to defend A? Anyone thinking it's A and has a reason? Okay, anyone want to defend B?
Yes, ma'am.
You can go ahead, Adi.
All right. It says night wears a garment, so it already speaks of night. It says all over her face flows a veil. It means dark and shelter. It says here and there means like everywhere in the black of her hair, the subtle hands of night, and then again another mentions of night.
Mm-hmm.
I would portray C because it says move slowly with their gem starlight, but that could also mean the lights of the night, such as the street lights.
So when you see light, you think you connect it to street light.
Yes.
Okay. And then well, I see what you're saying. So what about the sunrise? What part makes you see sunrise? And also, if you want to type a reason in the chat, feel free to do so.
Gem stored light. Order says gem stored light.
Okay, I see.
Or slowly. Remember the sun does rise slowly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I see why B. I see why you see it's B. Okay. So anyone want to defend C? I see a C in the chat.
I was thinking that it was C based on the fact that they use pronouns to talk about night and it gives it human action. So, it's personifying something that isn't real or human. So that's why I would say C is the answer.
Okay, I see. Thank you. C. So anyone want to defend A?
So for me, I think why I chose C, I kind of eliminated all options that were not consistent with the passage. A is talking about night in a rural area and in a city. I don't see where the text says anything about that, so I crossed that out. B doesn't say anything about sunrise. The first part is true, then the second part is false. C still makes sense because I can see the description of night and that of human, like the air and the subtle ends that I talked about night. So I'm keeping C for now.
Okay.
Then when I went to D, portrays how night changes from one. The text doesn't say how night changes from one season of the year to the next. So I think made me confident to pick C.
Okay, thank you. I love all the explanations because you all brought up like really, really key points to keep in mind as we go through. So we're going to go through each option and then I want us to decide on one answer together. Okay. So it's already been explained really well. So looking at A, the thing that's presenting red flags, we know this is the night because we were told it starts with night, right? So we already know this is night. And Ebere said something very important. I hope I pronounced your name. Okay. I don't even know. Which is Ebere your first name?
Iberi is my surname. You can call me Divine. Divine is my
Divine. Okay, thanks. So Divine mentioned a good point. Like when you're looking at an answer, you have to check all parts of it. Like even if the first part is right, if the last part is wrong, then it's wrong. And even if one word is not making sense, just one word being wrong can make an answer wrong. So first thing I want to bring up is you have to be very detail oriented. If you start making exceptions in your head, like, oh, well, it's only slightly wrong. That's what makes it wrong. Like the College Board doesn't do things accidentally. So keep that in mind. Like you have to be very, very skeptical as you pick your answer and look at every single word in it, like really analyze if it's correct or if it's wrong. Because just that one thing that sounds wrong might be the wrong thing. So be very detail oriented. So we're going to do that. So A says night, right? So we already know it's talking about night from the beginning. So that first part is right. But the last part, rural area and city, nothing mentions anything about rural and city. So this would just be, I guess it would be a misunderstanding of what's being said because overall we're just looking at one description and no alternation. So if you look at B, we know it's an image of nightfall, first part, of course. And then it says image of sunrise. So let's go back to the passage and see if there's anything that talks about sunlight, right? So we have night wears a garment, velvet soft, and over her face she draws a veil, shimmering. Okay, so it's talking about night here and there, black of her hair, subtle hands of night. And then this last sentence says, move slowly with their gem-starred light. Okay, so now we see light in this picture. This is a poem, so obviously it's not talking about, obviously this could be like some metaphor of some kind. Where is the clue? In the title. This is why the importance of reading the title is there. So it says street lamps in early spring. So now we know if it says light, it's talking about a street lamp, because the title, because this whole passage is talking about street lamps in early spring. So that would be what the light is. So yeah, this could be, because this is a poem, this could have been sunlight, but where's the clue? In the title. So always remember that the College Board gives you everything that you need to find the answer to the question, and you won't have to look outside. Like, you won't have to use your outside knowledge or experience of poetry or whatever. Everything that you need to be given to you in the passage. So look into the passage. And if something is not explicitly said, then it's wrong, because all that you know is the passage, and that's everything that you have, right? Then if you look at C, extended comparison of night, we know we're looking at night. And we also know it's being compared to a human being, right? Her face, here and there, black hair. So we know that that's accurate, okay? Let's go to D. It says it portrays how night changes from one season of the year to the next. Again, we know when it talks about light, we're still in the night, but just looking at a street lamp. So we're not talking about changes of seasons. So the first thing that you're looking for when you're looking for the main idea, which this is why I love how you guys explained your answers, you have to first see, is it accurate based on the passage? Because if it's wrong, like if it's wrong according to the passage, then it's wrong, and there's nothing else that you can do about it. So first of all, is it accurate based on the passage? And then secondly, is it the main idea? Because you could have an answer that's like correct, but is not the main idea. So you have to keep that in mind as you go through. And as we were going through, we were kind of like judging accuracy, but then we ended up with one answer that's kind of obviously right. So I am very much for C. And is there anyone who's still not for C? Feel free to like defend your answer. Okay. So major thing is it accurate based on the passage? But there are times when an answer will be accurate, but not the main idea. So that's just something to keep in mind, that it has to be talked about throughout the passage. In this case, we know that throughout the passage, we're comparing night to a human being. See, from the very beginning, her face and her hair. This is something that's gotten from almost the whole passage. So keep that in mind as you go through the main idea. So be very detail oriented, focus on what's been given to you. You don't have to like analyze beyond what's been given to you. And all the clues are there, you just have to find them. And then find your answer that's accurate, and then make sure that it's the main idea. Yeah, so anything on this question? Are we all okay? Okay. So question 7 is function. Like there are always keywords that will tell you what type of question it is. So whenever you see function, it's a function question, which we'll do in the times to come in our reading sessions. Function as well. Okay. According to the text, what is true? This is a literal comprehension question. We'll skip it for now. Infographics because of the graph. Infographics again because of the graph. Strongly support the conclusion. This is support of evidence. Okay. Skip this. Directly support. This is support of evidence as well. Directly support, that's evidence. Okay. Directly taken with weekend, also support of evidence. This is infographics. Evidence. Text, standard English, this is a writing question. Writing as well. Writing. This two are writing as well. Writing. Also writing. Okay, emphasize in. This is also writing. Present the study. Okay. This must be the first paper I've gone through that doesn't have as many main idea questions. We went through both module 1 and module 2. seem to have a lot of reading questions. So let me open a different paper. Okay. Okay, this is one. I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of us in here who've gone through one before. So let's try 43. So that we go through something new. Okay, so writing. Okay, main purpose. Okay, so going through this question, just move my, okay. So we'll do the same thing. I'll read through it and then see what you guys think. So it says, which choice best states the main purpose of the text? And remember, title is important. The following text is from Sarah Orne Jewett's 1899 short story, Martha's Lady. Martha is employed by Miss Pine as a maid. So we're reading this. And this is also literal comprehension because it's a story. Sorry, literature, not literal comprehension. Okay, so Miss Pine sat by the window watching in her best dress, looking stately and calm. She seldom went out now, and it was almost time for the carriage. Martha was just coming in from the garden with the strawberries, and with more flowers in her apron. It was a bright, cool evening in June. The golden robins sang in the elms, and the sun was going down behind the apple trees at the foot of the garden. The beautiful old house stood wide open to the long-expected guest. Okay, so we already know this is Martha is employed by Miss Pine as a maid. So Martha is the maid. And then we have Miss Pine and Martha. So that helps you to like follow the context of the passage. Okay, so options: to convey the worries brought about by a new guest. B, to describe how the characters have changed over time. C, to contrast the activity indoors with the stillness outside. D, to depict the setting as the characters await a visitor's arrival. Here we have D. A, let me put that in the chat.
Another D.
Okay, I see a D. Okay, any other opinions? Are we or either D or A? Okay, anyone want to defend their answer?
When we read to the text, it's Miss Pine sitting by the window, then the text goes further to basically just describe the environment. It also depicts the scene where it's almost time for the carriage to arrive. And at the last part, it said long expected guests. So I think they are waiting for a visitor. So it's just depicting the setting as the characters there. The characters, Miss Pine and Amit, await the visitor's arrival.
Thank you. So that was a defense for D. Anyone want to defend A? Okay, so we'll do the same thing. We'll go through them again. So Bear again brought out an important point, like if you're not going through the entire passage as you come up with your answer, it's very easy to be misled by any other answer. So you analyze the first part and said, okay, this is what Miss Pine is doing. Analyze the second part, this is what Martha is doing. And then what does the end tell us? So if it's kind of like sectioning the passage into different parts, and that will help you to like keep all of that in mind as you come up with your main idea. Okay, so to convey worries brought about by a new guest. Okay, so conveying the worries. Another thing about such questions is you look at the keyword: convey, describe, contrast, depict. This can give you like a good picture in a lot of cases on whether something is wrong or right. So also consider those words as you come up with your answer. Okay, so to convey worries brought about, so let's see. This answer, so let's see, has it outright been said that anyone is worried? Let's go through it. It says, Miss Pine sat by the window watching. She looked calm, stately and calm. Seldom went out. It was almost time for the carriage. Martha was coming in with strawberries, flowers, bright cool evening, golden ribbons. She was going down. Beautiful old house stood wide open. So nothing, remember that the keyword is explicit. You're trying not to like analyze it too far beyond what you can see, right? And I'll keep emphasizing that because it's so easy to like justify an answer because of what you think, or but remember that the college board, or let me just say the SAT exam, is supposed to be a standardized test, meaning it's not supposed to favor anyone in any way, right? So the way you analyze something is different from the way someone else will analyze it. So how would that be a fair question? Just keep that in mind. Like everything that you need will be outright given to you, and you won't need to like, you won't need to stretch the passage beyond what you can see, outright see. So keep that in mind as you go through a passage, right? And I'm saying that because nothing here says that they are worried, but it's easy to be like, oh, she was sitting by the window, like, maybe she was worried. Oh, it was a bright cool evening. She was in the garden working, like getting, she could have been worried also. So don't do that. Don't like get information that's not given to you, because that is definitely going to mislead you and make you look at the wrong answer. So A is wrong because it doesn't say anyone was worried. We know that the new guest is coming, right? There's an expected guest, but there's nothing that is describing worries from the beginning. If it said something like Miss Pine was worried, she sat by the window, she was scratching her head, oh, Martha was toiling so hard because she was trying to be ready, all those things, then that would have been the answer. But it doesn't outright say that they were worried. So we eliminate A. B says to describe how the characters have changed over time. This has an element of truth. I say this because there's a part that says, so we have Miss Pine, right? She was calm. She seldom went out now. So there's this very tiny part that's like, oh yeah, she's calm now. Like she went outside and she seldom used to do that. Like she seldom went out now, meaning she used to do it a lot. And then now she doesn't do it. But if you look at the rest of the passage, it says Martha was coming in, flowers in her apron. She was basically doing her job behind the apple trees. This is just a very tiny, tiny, it's a word, in fact, this word now, that like very semi implies that this character has changed over time, but that's not the main idea. So this is why I kept emphasizing the difference between accuracy and is it the main idea? Because this could be accurate. I mean, something is implied in that line, but it's not the main idea. That's not what the passage is talking about. That's just like a small part of it. So always keep that in mind. Don't just ask, is it accurate? Also ask, is it the main idea? So B is out because it's not the main idea. Then we look at C, to contrast the activity indoors with the stillness outside. This is, I can see the trick in this. First of all, where is indoors mentioned, right? This says she said, so Miss Pine looked, yes, she was looking outside the window. She was calm, she didn't go outside, okay. And then Martha was coming in from the garden. So Martha was also inside. Martha was coming in from the garden. She had flowers in her apron. Okay, then it talks about how it was a bright, cool evening, golden robins. Sun was going down behind the apple trees, and yes, as it goes on. And then the beautiful old house stood wide open. Okay, so there is an element of like Miss Pine is indoors, Martha is outside. And there's an element of like, oh, the evening is like this. But this contrast word, there was no contrast being made. If the passage was saying, oh, indoors was quiet and calm, and then outdoors was loud and bright, and then there would be a contrast. But this passage is not doing that. Yes, it mentions the outside, yes, it mentions the inside, but it's not contrasting.
I am not sure.
Okay. So it does mention the outside and the inside to some extent, but it's not contrasting the outside and the inside, which is why I said the keyword is very, very important. So keep that in mind as you go through. And then to depict the setting as the characters await. So this makes sense. It's already been explained very well. Miss Pine is waiting, Martha was coming in, and then it was an evening. So it's basically saying this is how the house is looking. And even the tense is important because it's like, Miss Pine is sitting, like, all this is happening at the same time because of how the story has been brought out. And then at the end, it says, stood wide open to the long expected. So they were waiting for this visitor's arrival. So that's why D makes the most sense in this. This was a very packed question because it's so easy to be taken one way or another. But in the end, the right answer is right. So another thing to keep in mind is go through all the options, because it's so easy to be misled by one and convince yourself like, oh, this is it. But then there's one that's very correct and you won't even need to convince yourself in any way. So keep in mind that you might have to go through all the questions, all the options, I mean, and see what they are. Don't just like find one that's, oh, this seems like, and then move on, because it's easy to be misled. That's what the College Board is trying to do, actually. They're trying to mislead you. So it's very easy to be led astray by an answer that's semi-right, but it's just not. Yeah. So anything on this question? Okay, so we'll have one last question. This is function. What is true? This is literal comprehension. Main idea. Okay. Sorry, I'm like placing the screens and the chats so they're not blocking the question. Okay. So main idea question. First thing is read the question. What is the main idea? So we know what we're looking for. Okay. This one has no title, so there's no context for us to know. We're just reading the passage. Believing that living in an impractical space can heighten awareness and even improve health, conceptual artists Madeline Jeans and Shusaku Akawara designed an apartment building in Japan to be more fanciful than functional. A kitchen counter is chest high on one side and knee high on the other. A ceiling has a door to nowhere. The effect is disorienting but invigorating. After 4 years there, filmmaker Nobu Yamaoka reported significant health benefits. This is a very interesting passage. Okay, so reading through the options. A says, although inhabiting a home surrounded by fanciful features such as those designed by Jeans and Akawara can be rejuvenating, it is unsustainable. B, designing disorienting spaces like those in Jeans and Akawara building is the most effective way to create a physically stimulating environment. C, as a filmmaker, Yamaoka has long supported the designs of conceptual artists such as Jeans and Akawara. And then D says, although impractical, the design of the apartment building. Oh, sorry. Jerome, did you mean were you saying no to the previous question? I just saw the chat. Or was that, I guess it was any questions. Okay, yeah. Okay, so as an option C, says as a filmmaker, Yamaoka has long supported the designs of conceptual artists such as Jeans and Akawara. D, although impractical, the design of the apartment building by Jeans and Akawara may improve the well-being of the building's residents. So what do you guys think? I see a D in the chat. What do we think? Okay, a lot of Ds. Do we all agree with D? Okay, anyone want to defend D?
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
All right. It says in the passage that they're designing them to be more fanciful than functional. Means it already says it's not going to function, as D says it's impractical. And then it says the effect is disorienting, however invigorating. It means that despite its impracticality, it's also health beneficial, which is invigorating.
Thank you.
The passage also never mentioned anything about Yamaoka's long support for the designs of conceptual workers like Jeans and Arakawa. And it never said anything about it being unsustainable. It just said something about the others believing in it. So A is killed. Oh yeah, and you can't say it's the most creative because nothing else was mentioned. There was no comparison.
Thank you. You read my mind, Aldine. I was actually going to ask if anyone could disqualify the rest of the answers, and you did just that. So thank you for that. Yeah, so first of all, D gives us what the passage is saying. That It's impractical, but it's helpful. And that's implied throughout the passage. Living space, height and health. From the beginning, it's talking about just the building, how it looks, how helpful it is. So it's definitely the main idea it's talked about throughout the passage. And then this is also correct based on what has been said in the passage. And yeah, just to go over what you said, C is wrong, yeah, like you said, because it doesn't say anything about Yamaoka supporting. And then B is wrong because there's no comparison made. So how can it be the most effective? And then A is wrong because there's nothing about sustainability mentioned. So again, it's easy to like fall for these other answers if you start convincing yourself too much and like try to draw conclusions why it's not explicitly stated. So always keep that in mind, just like deal with what you've been given. Yeah. So any questions based on, I guess, everything we've covered today? Okay, so the thing I want to leave you with is, again, as you practice, have an approach of fixing your mistakes. Don't just like go through it and feel good, like, oh yeah, 50 out of 50. Like when you go through it, ask yourself, why did I get this question wrong? Or even why did I get this question right? Like, why were these answers wrong? And just the way Aldine broke it down, if you're able to convince yourself why the other answers are wrong, that makes you more sure of your answer. And it also prepares you to identify wrong answers. Because there are two ways for you to find an answer. You can disqualify the rest or qualify your answer. And sometimes you need to do both. So the more you practice, the better you become. And remember that the College Board has put explanations for their answers. That's so helpful. Like just reading how they disqualify an answer really lets you know, like, what are they thinking? Like what makes them say an answer is wrong? So take time, even maybe after you go through a paper and you mark yourself and like you go through the answer choices. Also take time to read those explanations because they are very insightful and they can help you as you go through other papers as well. So remember, tests are not for you to feel good. They're for you to diagnose where your weaknesses are and deal with them. Yeah. So any general questions, even if it's not about the SAT? Okay, so that's it. Thank you guys for coming. This is supposed to be a 2-hour session, but I have a commitment. So let me stop recording. I forgot to stop recording.
That's fine. Besides, you came out